The more that you watch, the more things you will know. Welcome to MsMojo, and today we're counting down our picks for the top 10 facts about Dr. Seuss that will ruin your childhood.
Oh, man.
There's nothing to worry about. I'm sure they still taste fine. Yuck! They're horrible! Who wants some? Come on.
For this list, we'll be looking at shocking details about the life of Theodor Seuss Ted Geisel, aka Dr. Seuss.
What is your name, please?
My name is Ted Geisel.
Number 10. He wasn't a doctor.
Well, I'm glad to meet 3 doctors who specialize in a miracle drug called laughter.
Most people aren't familiar with Dr. Seuss's real name, Theodor Seuss Ted Geisel. When he was a college student at Dartmouth, he began using Seuss as a pen name and eventually added the doctor to it despite having no medical background.
It's a complete phony. That's my middle name, and I put the doctor in front of it.
In fact, his second wife Audrey allegedly thought he was a proper doctor when she met him.
And they came to Ted and said, "And this is our very own dear Dr. Seuss." I immediately thought in terms of medicine.
In 1956, however, Dartmouth did grant the writer an honorary doctorate, so technically he did become a doctor in the end. We just hope no one ever asked him to diagnose their symptoms. Number 9. He didn't seem to like kids.
Ted was afraid of children, I felt, because he had had almost no experience with them.
Despite the fact that he will go down in history as one of the most prolific authors of children's books, Dr. Seuss didn't have children of his own. Some sources say that he and his first wife, Helen Palmer, were unable to have children. But Geisel also made a few public statements over the years that made it seem as though kids weren't for him. He famously said of children, quote, "You have 'em, I'll entertain 'em."
He never lost the ability to see things through the eyes of a child.
His second wife, Audrey, also stated that he was always very happy without children. Number 8. He won an Academy Award for war propaganda.
The problem now is future peace. That is your job in Germany.
It isn't widely known that, around the time of the Second World War, Dr. Seuss, along with his wife Helen, wrote a documentary called Design for Death, which was released in 1947. It was based on a military training film about Japanese culture that he also wrote, called Our Job in Japan.
Any sensible idea, any modern idea, the Japanese brain, like our brain, can learn when it is taught.
Though at the time it may have been considered to actually be sympathetic to the Japanese, in retrospect it's quite clearly pro-war propaganda. Design for Death went on to win the Academy Award for Best Documentary Feature.
Like I always said, every man his own censor.
Number 7. He was fired for drinking. Not all college students meet the legal drinking age in the United States, but obviously many of them break the rules. Ted Geisel got in trouble for drinking while he was studying at Dartmouth, but not for the reasons you'd think. You see, he was going to college during the Prohibition, when drinking alcohol was illegal. So, when he was caught having gin with some friends in his dorm, the dean asked that he step down from all extracurriculars, including his job as editor-in-chief of the humor magazine The Jack-O-Lantern.
But of course that is a place where you get to write pretty much anything you want, within reason. It was a place for him to write nonsense verse and to do ridiculous cartoons.
However, it was by using the pen name Seuss, as previously mentioned, that he was able to keep working on the magazine undiscovered. Number 6. The Grinch was based on him.
Always in a jolly mood. That's not gonna happen. Oh well.
How the Grinch Stole Christmas is perhaps Dr. Seuss's best loved work, having been adapted many times and becoming a holiday classic. Considering the message told in it, you'd assume that Seuss himself was a holiday sentimentalist, but in fact, the opposite is true.
Then he got an idea. An awful idea.
It turns out that the Grinch was based on the writer himself. He says that he got inspired when he was brushing his teeth the day after Christmas. In the book, the Grinch mentions he's been putting up with this for 53 years, which just so happens to have been Dr. Seuss's age when he wrote it. He even got himself a vanity plate for his car that read Grinch.
Saving Christmas is a lousy ending. Way too commercial.
Number 5. His first book was called Boners. Now, before your mind goes too far into the gutter, let's recall that the word boner has more than one definition and doesn't necessarily have to do with the male anatomy. Another definition is a frivolous error. Dr. Seuss's first ever published book, which came out in 1931, was Boners, a collection of stories written for children that landed itself on the New York Times bestseller list. Not only that, but it spawned a follow-up titled More Boners. We can't make this stuff up. Can you believe that this is what kicked off his successful publishing career? Number 4. He published adult content. Before we get off the subject, Dr. Seuss did actually write some pretty racy adult content. His 1939 book, The Seven Lady Godivas, was about a group of sisters who never wore clothes because, quote, they were simply themselves and chose not to disguise it. The book was a colossal failure, and Seuss blamed himself, saying that he tried to make the women sexy, but wasn't able to pull it off. Geisel also contributed a couple of cartoons to a book called The Bedroom Companion or A Cold Night's Entertainment, which were also pretty suggestive.
Well nude, and then decide to be with their fiancés, the Peeping Brothers.
Sure.
Sure.
Number 3. He made war propaganda. We already talked about Geisel's Oscar win for his war documentary, but before that he was involved in producing some other pro-war content as well. At the beginning of the war, he started to pen political cartoons for a New York City newspaper called PM. Some of the work he produced at the time was controversial, and in retrospect would be considered propaganda. While he derided racism in many of the images he created, there was at least one instance of him drawing racist depictions of Japanese people and supporting Japanese internment camps. Number 2. His earliest cartoons were racist.
But could this cartoon now chip away at the image of the beloved author?
Before joining the war effort, Ted Geisel had a job in advertising, where he did work for a company called Standard Oil of New Jersey, later Esso, and their product Flit, a bug spray. Unfortunately, however, many of the cartoons that he created for their ads now seem incredibly racist, featuring images of Black and Arab people done in a stereotypical way.
He was a hugely popular figure in the media before he really became popular as a children's book writer.
One of his cartoons from this time period even includes the N-word. Considering that later in life he created children's books that were seemingly opposed to the idea of racism, we have to assume he changed his ways.
Okay, this is the Japanese worm, right, in water. The caption is, well, well. Seems to be a slight shifting of the Japanese current.
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications. Number 1. His unfaithfulness led to his wife's death.
And they had an affair, and Helen found out. And in the wake of that knowledge, and also because she felt like she was no longer the woman she was before those illnesses, she killed herself.
While we've talked a lot about Dr. Seuss's career before he became a renowned creator of children's books, we haven't touched much on his personal life. But in fact, that's where some of the darkest demons from his past lie. He was married to Helen Palmer for decades, but she was in ill health for many years, including having cancer. During this time, Geisel had an affair with Audrey Stone Diamond, which contributed to Helen deciding to end her life.
We were very good friends. I was something else again that he hadn't happened to come up against. And he fell in love.
In her suicide note, she addresses him asking what happened to them and asking him to remember the good times. He went on to marry Audrey, who he stayed with until his death. Do you agree with our picks? Check out this other recent clip from MsMojo. And be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.